art is really seeing more than it is painting. Or this style of art that I like is being able to see and see what's important fairly quickly. My name is TJ Cunningham. I am an impressionistic artist. I always loved to really draw and sculpt and things like that when I was a kid. It was really how I related. If I became very interested in something, I would make like a three-dimensional model of it. So that's always how I related. And I didn't really think of it as being an artist. That's just how I was showing my interest in the world. And then relating to things that I'm interested in through creativity, through art, if you will, changed in college because I fell absolutely in love with oil painting. You know, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. I just like the way all these paints look on the palette, you know? So, I mean, it's definitely good to study what you can do with very few colors, but I have a blast with many. I first became interested in painting the Adirondacks on a day when I was just like, I quit. I'm not doing this anymore. I give up. So, you know, just sort of like, okay, I'm going to go outside and paint. So I went outside, and I always, from my house, painted to the east. But that day, I painted towards the west for the first time. And I just was looking at the Adirondacks thinking, wow, those are so interesting to look at. This is sort of an adventure to me. This is a place that I'm not familiar with, and it feels so much more wild. There's going to be, I think, in these paintings, something a bit more dramatic. The color and the edges and even the form, the things that you can see and understand. There's so much about art that's beyond words, beyond explanation. I just don't know how it all fits together. So you can't really, I have trouble distilling things like that into words, but just to be able to record an experience, it's like taking notes. The words don't have any meaning unless they're arranged properly, but words arranged properly and with the correct meaning have centuries of worth and meaning. So the same with painting. I'm getting more and more fussy about always starting it from life in some capacity. Whenever I can get something that's intangible into one of my paintings, so it's something more than just rocks and trees and mountains and stuff, that feels like you could just walk into it, but it's so simply and beautifully painted that you're sort of caught between admiring the scene and just loving each brush stroke, then that's a really good thing. So when I'm looking at a field of blades of grass and thinking there are no two blades of grass that have ever been alike in all of history. And so the rich depth of God's word when he said, let there be grass, or however it went, when I look at anything, I'm thinking of that. And it just gives me a wonder. Painting something that truly speaks of excellence is a lifelong pursuit. Where I am on the artistic journey is, I would like to think, the very beginning, because I want to leave myself a lot of room for growth.
My paintings are in a place, they're sort of in a different world than we live in, but it's kind of a feel-good place, and I think it makes people feel good.
What really appeals to me are the lights and the darks created at this time of day, where there's these long shadows. And mountains, to me, really hold the landscape here. I love, to put them in a big way, and sometimes exaggerate them, and they're huge, and sometimes I take a landscape like this and just flip it up. Or, I paint it like I'm way up high on a hill. So I'm just always kind of toying with it, and it makes it more interesting for me. Otherwise, I don't know, I think I would lose interest if I couldn't use my imagination with the work. I like being in the studio because there's a little bit of a separation where my imagination is freer. I'm not tied to what I'm looking at. And that's why I don't paint from one photograph. Maybe I'm looking at 3 at the same time and they're 3 different places. I see things and break them down into forms and shapes and line, and I don't want to paint what I'm seeing. I want to simplify it. I think I'd like sometimes to flee from that style, but it's so innate. I can't. It's just what comes out of me. And I guess, that's what being an artist is listening to what's inside of you. I think when I'm painting, you think about your life, you think about people in your life, and they appear in the paintings, and they can be trees or buildings or whatever, but they have personalities. They also have relationships with each other in the painting. And, there's like 2 trees bending together, 1 tree moving away from the other tree, or there are things happening in there that are like they're speaking to each other or they're communicating in some way. I've always had a strong interest in making art ever since I was a young child. I guess I left college thinking I didn't have that much to say. And I think I needed to get older and have more life experience. And throughout college, I taught every summer. That's how I earned my, income. And I took a year off and decided to set the school up on a yearly basis. And I did that for 30 years. I've been really influenced by kids using colors in extraordinary ways. And I always use this one kid because he was doing a landscape painting, and first thing he did is paint all his grass red, and he painted the sky green. And I just loved this painting. I just thought, that was what he wanted to do, and he did it, and it looked fabulous. And it wasn't based on anything he'd seen or real. And I thought, I love this. I'm gonna do this, I think it's from the teaching. I think I get my freedom with the colors from all the years of teaching kids and watching them work, and maybe just from loving color. When I started doing my own work, I realized that my work was giving other people joy. Part of the reason it happened so fast for me was all those years of teaching. I was sort of teaching myself and finding where I wanted to be with my art. And so once I started putting the brush and the paint and putting it on, I was like, there it was. I'd already figured out a lot of what I wanted to do. And I was bursting by that point. Well, the reason I think I was able to finally do it was I gave myself permission to do what came out of me. I like to use a lot of paint, but I like it to be soft and smooth and clean. And I like to play complementary colors off against each other so they really pop. And I really like to enhance the color of everything. And I think it's a freedom. And that is what I try to hang on to. And I think sometimes I lose it and my work shows for it. It gets kind of static. Sometimes things you don't know where they're coming from. There are certain paintings that I feel like they just paint themselves. And I know that sounds maybe corny, but it feels like that sometimes. Well, the naming is fun for me, and I think for all different reasons. Sometimes they're related to what's going on in my life. Sometimes it's some little story I've created in my head while I'm doing the painting, and there's humor. I guess I just try to get a lot of things into my work so it remains fun, and I think the color makes it
fun, playing with the color. No, sometimes it is there. The tree is red, and it's like, but I'm saying I get to play God and I get to make my trees whatever color I want. I mean, I just did a painting with blue trees and they looked pretty good. And what did I name the painting? I'd take blue trees anytime.
It's just this continuum in a lot of cases of the unexpected. And I guess that's what I live for. And my name is David Wade. The manner in which I work is as spontaneous as I can get away with. So my response, I guess, has always been to things in nature more so than process things that man brings into being. Danby marble is known throughout the world because of its quartz content. When I go to a quarry, the first thing I do is just to walk around, take it all in. No, I really don't know what I'm looking for, quite honestly. And I never know what it is that's going to excite me. Every time you see a variation in the patterns in the stone, it's because it was liquid. The stone was at one point liquid and it literally was flowing. And sometimes it was carrying crystal with it. And sometimes it was under so much heat and pressure that crystals formed. Even at that level, there's an infinite variety of interrelationships of color and hardnesses and elements that are embodied in the stone. You never know what is going to root itself in your compulsion. There's a lot of spontaneity that, like you get onto something and it's an irreversible course. I guess my work environment has evolved out of really practical inclinations, as much as I hate to admit it. It's like my work, I guess, is in relation to my personality. So, at any given time, I have probably maybe 20 or 30 potential projects going on, and I kind of dance from one to another without any phenomenal expectations, but I find getting away from things, it gives you a fresh perspective when you go back to them. I like the immersion in the whole process. I like to understand touch. Maybe it's just I'm a control freak. I don't even know. Maybe that's a characteristic and I don't even realize it. I don't know. I like to be involved with the entire process. I always like to have a sense of mystery as to outcome. So I may change something right at the very end, just to satisfy my urge to see something in a slightly different light. I do a bit of hard edge stuff, but mostly I like organic and softer expression forms. I think probably that's my response to a very hard-edged world. When I'm working on that tactile relationship, it's just an emotional state that just kind of compels you. I guess because it feels so good. I think musicians might experience that too. They know their instrument so well. They're making it do what they want almost unconsciously. And they're making their music and they're also making their dreams at the same time.
like biblical days, your money was called your talents. So that's how I kind of see it in this time too. It's like something that's well crafted, is very desirable. Manifesting the talents, I think, is something that I appreciate in this life. Oh, my name's Rory Jackson, and I'm an oil painter. I've been painting for, all my life at this point. My work is representational. It's got a lot of big strokes and kind of bold movements of the brush. And I like to play with light a lot and reflection. I don't see any barriers, around colors. Like, you can put any color anywhere. If you kind of imagine like the palette and the warms and the cools, and you kind of squint your eyes and see all the values of those colors, that's kind of how I approach the painting, because I can throw in like a purple into like a green field, and if it's the same value, it'll just like kind of dance and pop with that green. And that could not be a true statement, but that's how I see it. Like if you're like in a good space and you're feeling like liberated within yourself at a moment, then your strokes are also liberated, and like the energy or like approach you're working like reflects that. I might not have like the perfect technical abilities, but I have a space in me that yearns for that discovery. I think that's what you need, really. You need that place in your head where you can like discover with this medium.
I'm not crazy. I'm not a fool. I'm not crazy. I'm not a fool. I'm not crazy. I'm not a fool.
Water and how it reflects light is what inspires me mostly. We're made of water. Water sets us back to zero again, puts us back to level. And so the water to me is just like rejuvenation, of all my cells and my thoughts and everything. If I'm like frustrated or like getting stiff or like whatever it is, even if it's going well and I jump in the river, everything's just better, and I think I just love water. I'm like a dog. I'll chase a ball and I'll jump in the water anytime. Both the boys love doing work, doing art. Yeah, they do amazing stuff, and it's just so free, I don't really give them much instruction. I just kind of show them how the mediums work and let them go, mostly. You guys have any music requests?
Any songs? But I know Old MacDonald. And Buffalo Soldier, actually, no.
I think it's important to appreciate, kind of the talents and the directions of your past and your ancestors, and kind of, absorb that and carry that torch. Also, the fact that it's like generational, it's kind of like passed on, from my grandmother to my mom to me to my kids, I have to be like inspired with what I'm working on, when you see that like kind of magical light that happens on this earth, it's just like it sends off this like little sense of, I don't know how to say it. It's like a timelessness, it's just like, wow, that's it. That's like the magic. Like everything looks to Mount Abe. It's a pretty good view of it. It's also a half a mile from our house. Like in the lowlands to like the faraway mountain aspect is really powerful. So you have the water and the lake, and then you also have like the big mountains. I watched the cloud move from kind of the west, and it kind of just rolled across the valley and like spun and twisted up and turned. I just stayed here for like 45 minutes just capturing it. It was amazing. To hold the mental space I want to have. I'll make sure that, you know, I have the music and the right kind of direction in my head to like approach my work. Because otherwise it's just like, it's kind of like fighting or stacking marbles or herding cats or whatever. The juicier the paint, the bigger the stroke. The bigger the brush, the better for me. I like the kind of movement of the arm to be evident in the stroke, just to give a feeling of direction, a feeling of like application that's kind of imprinted in the piece. And then when I need to refine, I'll come in with the smaller brushes. From 5 to 11 at night, it's probably the time that things start happening, mostly for me. Just like the constant student mentality. It's like, I'm just learning always. Makes you like forgive yourself for not being perfect, and also like keeps you interested in bettering your skill, mastering your talent. I don't know how to describe it. It's just kind of like a way of going through life, using your hands and your heart and colors.
Vermont PBS, partnering with local filmmakers to bring you stories made here. For more, visit vermontpbs.org.